Good morning, everyone, and welcome to week 10 of our 25-week course on how to improve your business valuation and to get a better selling process. So this week, we're on to the second stage, which is clarifying your goals. And we're looking at one of what I think is the very best ways of improving the valuation of your business. And that is cost optimization. Now, most valuations of businesses are based on a multiple of your profit. So every time you save £1, that goes on your bottom line, and that's £1 multiplied by whatever multiple you have, which tends to be between 3 and 10 times. So every pound you save, you will get a more £3 to £10 more. So if you save £100,000, that could make you as much as £1 million more valuation when you sell your business. So it's really worthwhile thinking about that. But what I will say before we start on the key 5 points of cost optimization is that cost optimization is not about cutting corners. It's really important that you don't take risks when you cut costs, but rather look at identifying inefficiencies within your business and ways that you can make your processes more streamlined, or you can have much better much better costs and not take so much issues. Morning to everyone who is joining. We've just started and we're just about to go on to the first slide of the 5. We are looking at 5 key points on cost optimization for your business. So moving to the first slide, the first one is all about identifying and eliminating inefficiencies across your operation. I have been running businesses for about 30 years, and this is one of the first things I do when I go into a business. The first thing you want to do is conduct a thorough audit of all of your business processes. Now, if you own your own business or you've been running a business for a while, sometimes it's quite difficult to look at that with an outside perspective. So you really have to consider that you're going in fresh from outside, and work with a couple of people in your team, making a really good exercise to map out every single process in your business. So if you have a product that you're selling, it's all the way through from when you design that product, order that product, when it arrives and when it goes through and is delivered to the customer. So there are lots of process flowchart tools that you can use. I've got them all on, you can access for free on the Sales Success Circle. But it's really good to have a value stream mapping and identify where you have bottlenecks. I worked with a small manufacturing business that was in Leeds, and they had a process audit, and they discovered that they were quite surprised, but they discovered that in their production line they had a bottleneck in quality control. So they reallocated resources and streamlined this step, and it actually ended up reducing production time by 15%. So they were able to get more products out more quickly, which made a huge impact. The next one is identifying areas of waste and redundancy. So that might be where you're holding far too much stock, so excess inventory, underutilized assets, so maybe machinery if you're manufacturing that aren't used, or indeed something like duplicated tasks. So I've often seen this in manufacturing businesses, but you see it very often in service businesses as well. Possibly when you have multiple touch points with your customer, when you could probably do with having one person who is their touch point, and that will reduce the number of contact points. So I work with a marketing agency, and they were paying for multiple overlapping software subscriptions. That's very often the case when you're trying to move forward and modernize your business, is that you're worried about switching the old one off. So they consolidated the tools and ended up saving £8,000 annually. So that was £8,000 on their bottom line. Their company was valued at 5 times multiple. So that immediately put £40,000 on their additional on their valuation. So definitely worth doing. So they just stopped a couple of subscriptions that they didn't need. The last one of this first point is implementing lean management principles. Now, you don't have to be an expert in lean principles to be able to put this in place. This is all about minimizing waste and maximizing customer value. So it's continuous improvement, and it's really about trying to get that in the culture of your business, getting your and listening to your employees. They normally always have a better solution for the way that things are done. And so only focus on your value adding activities and try to take out the stuff which is less necessary. So my really interesting one on this was working with a Birmingham bakery. And they had lean principles just in a bakery they were able to put in place. So they reduced the ingredient waste, and they had a just-in-time management system. So they had a lot less stock that they held. They brought it in, and they with baked products they have to be sold in a day or two anyway. But they made sure that the supply of those was a lot quicker. That saved them £12,000 a year. £12,000 on the bottom line with a valuation of 5 times is £60,000 more, just from the valuation if they were selling. So again, for those of you who are joining, we will go through the 5 steps. This is step 1, and then at the end there'll be an opportunity. I'd really love your questions. We have got a few that have been sent in advance, but let's move on to the second slide. This one is something which is really important to me, is negotiating better terms with the suppliers and vendors. I have bought about 60 businesses over my career, and every single time I go in and renegotiate with the suppliers and vendors and end up getting a much better discount. And if you can get 5% discount, that again goes straight onto your bottom line and onto your profitability. So it's definitely worth having a look at. So the first thing you do is look at any existing agreements that you have with your suppliers, and look at current market rates. Very often your suppliers, if you've been with them a while, will adjust their pricing differently to their competitors. So it's good to look out to the market, look at the price, and you don't have to change your supplier, but it's presenting them with the facts about where else you can get and for what price, and what type of product or service, and then going back to them. Just identify the areas where you're overpaying, and you can normally get a much better deal with your current suppliers. I worked with a SME in Manchester, and they had bulk material contracts with a supplier they've been working with for about 7 years. They've negotiated with them and managed to get a 10% discount for loyalty, for staying with them, and that put 25,000 on the bottom line. So that would be £1/8 million in terms of total valuation. So definitely worth doing. The next one I would normally suggest doing is, and it depends on the size of your company, but exploring bulk purchasing options. So it's a balance about doing this, because you don't want to hold too much stock, but you can normally get larger quantities in much better prices. So look at multiple business units, and see if you're across a number of sites, if you can order a larger quantity which fits for all of the sites, and that can often lead to significant cost savings. So there was a chain of independent cafes in London that I worked for, and one of the most expensive products that they had to buy was coffee beans. So they were able to consolidate that, and rather than putting lots of small orders in, they put one big order in for the whole chain, and they were able to get a 15% discount on that for the higher volume purchasing. The final one on this one about better terms is considering alternative suppliers or materials. It's often people are reticent to change their supplier when they've had a good trust built up over years with their current suppliers. And normally, as I said in the first point, you can get a better deal with your current suppliers anyway, but it's always worth researching other suppliers and other materials that you could potentially use. So for example, furniture. They switched to sustain. I worked with a furniture company, and they switched over to sustainable yet cost-effective wood supplier, and they were able to keep the quality of their furniture, but reduce their cost by 20%. And they also had the tick box of really appealing to eco-conscious buyers. So the third point on cost effectiveness is lean management principles. We talked briefly about that in a previous slide, but I wanted to really cover this in a little bit more detail. So this can be broken into 3 steps. The first thing you want to do is train your staff. So if they understand some of the basic principles of Kaizen or Six Sigma, it really helps everyone to contribute to the culture of continuous improvement. You don't need to become an expert at Kaizen or a black belt in Six Sigma. It's just about having some basic principles, and we have those as free resources on the Sales Success Circle. So, for example, I work with a small engineering firm just down the road in Bristol, and they trained their staff in lean practices, and that meant they really understood the errors and where errors are occurring in their production process, and they managed to improve that. It was about the nibs of pens. It was a really interesting project, but 30% cost saving because of that. The next thing you need to do is, once the staff are trained, to implement the processes and make sure it's a continuous review cycle. Very often it's most companies I work with don't review what they do. They don't have put time in the diary to do that. We're all chasing our tails all the time, but it's a really fundamental thing. There was a design company in Sheffield that I was working with, and they actually did it weekly because they had so many design projects that were going out. So they had a very quick stand-up meeting once a week on quality and on the processes, and they were able to save 5 grand a month by optimizing their project workflows and cutting back some of the extra thing. They were able to replicate efficiencies across projects. And the final stage is focus on value adding materials, and that's what you can activities. You can do that if you really think about eliminating non-essential ones. If non-essential activities come out, then you're much more efficient in what you do. This is really easy to demonstrate in logistics, and I worked with an SME logistics company in Coventry, and they streamlined their delivery routes. And just by doing that, they worked out that they had saved £10,000 a year on their fuel costs alone. So it's really about focusing on those things that are going to make a difference. The fourth out of the fifth is about how to use your technology for process automation. Now, we mentioned earlier in this presentation that a lot of people had redundant systems because they kept on trying to replace them and put new ones in. So I'd caution against this. But the first thing I would do is see how your technology is used in your company and how it can help with automation. The first thing to do is look at repetitive tasks that are within your business. That might be something like data entry, or a typical one is invoicing and the amount of time that takes, or inventory management. All of these have an opportunity to be automated, probably to a greater extent than you've got it there. An example of this is a recruitment company in Edinburgh. So they brought in an ATS, an applicant tracking system, and that reduced their admin hours by 25%. If you are recruiting a lot of people, an ATS, I think, is a really valuable tool to add to your tech portfolio. The second one is implementing the right automation tools, and the one most obvious one, if you're managing a number of customers, is a CRM system, and also accounting software and project management platforms. Now, I had a background in corporates originally, and we'd be working with Salesforce, which would cost hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. The good news is, with all the AI and the technology companies, you can actually, for probably just about £10 a month, get a good Xero accounting system. You can get a good CRM system, and you can also get a good project management system, and they will all integrate quite easily together if you've got somebody who can do APIs in the background. So really, really worthwhile looking at your tools, particularly for customer management, invoice management, and inventory management. I worked with an e-commerce business in Brighton, and they did a stock management system, was their first thing they focused on, and they were able to cut inventory costs by 20 grand annually because they realized that they had 52 weeks, 48 weeks of stock when they probably only needed to carry 12. And then the last one on this section is making sure, again, that you keep your staff in the loop on this by training them to work alongside things. There's a lot less reticence within industry now for staff working with technology. I've done a lot of work in care, and they couldn't stand the idea of going from a paper-based system to an app on the telephone. And now all the carers love having the opportunity to work with tech because it saves them so much time. So if your team actually understand how to use the system and how to leverage the tools effectively, it really helps with productivity. And if you're a larger size company, it's great to have one or two champions for that technology who will be the experts and can go and pass on that training to new people or people who need a little bit of help. So tech is a massive thing when it comes to cost optimization, and it doesn't cost very much to do it these days. The final section I wanted to cover on these 5 points today, before we moved on to the questions, is making sure that you do a regular cost benefit analysis of all activities. As mentioned before, I think it's really difficult to make sure that this is one of the best things to do is actually review what you do and take your learnings from it. And this is where most companies struggle because they're so intent on doing the day-to-day stuff, they forget on the importance of this. So these are the 3 steps you want to take in this. And the first one is implementing a system for tracking costs and benefits to all major activities. So you can use a financial tracking tool. Xero have got these on them, and you want to look at your return on your investment for projects and processes in real time. I've been working with an architecture company, and they haven't had the opportunity to review a lot of their projects, and so they haven't been billing it out appropriately. So I've been working with them, and they've been tracking their hours at different levels of job a lot more effectively, and that's made them, and they've reviewed it at the end, and it's made them much better at costing out projects, allowing for a project management fee and a review fee in each of them. So it's really good to have a system that makes sure that you're consistent in what you deliver. The second one is to regularly review and assess the ROI of different business areas. We did the work in the with the information from the tracking system in the architecture company, and we were able to identify that 40% of the projects were only break even or not even that. That then what we managed to establish from that was that the billing wasn't done correctly in the first place, and the review cycles weren't as much. So we did that and were able to change uplift the profitability by about 20%. It was about 18%. And then what I would say is sometimes you don't get it right. You put systems and processes in place, and if things don't work out, just be ready to pivot and change. If an activity is not delivering value to your business, do not hesitate to adjust or even stop doing it. So I worked with a catering company in Cardiff, and they were delivering to corporate events. And during the lockdown, they pivoted and changed to actually doing individual meal prep services instead because the market had changed. And they realised by doing that they actually got 40% more profitability. So they took advantage of the market opportunity and the fact that they weren't doing corporate events. So always be prepared to pivot. So those are the 5 key points for today. I've mentioned a couple of times the Sales Success Circle. This is free to access. We'll send you the link, and this provides you with free tools for every aspect of what we cover in these presentations each Friday. So please have a look at that, and if you want to find out more, we'll send a link so you can book an appointment. So next, it's on to the questions. Does anyone have any questions about the cost utilisation based on some of the information we've cover today, or maybe even not on anything else? I think, Chi, we have a couple that have come in. Okay. I like the first question then. The best way to identify hidden costs in my business without turning into Sherlock Holmes. Well, the good news is you don't have to be a gifted detective to be able to find out these things. Identify hidden costs in your business isn't a mystery. The key is to really do it systematically, have a step-by-step approach, and use the tools and the data that you have. And most importantly, I think, is get input from your team. Probably 50% of the changes that probably 60% of the changes that I've successfully made to increase profitability have come from my teams and the different businesses I worked in. So definitely include those. I think the three things I'll do is look at profit and loss, first of all, and I'll break down expenses into categories, direct expensive, indirect, fixed and variable costs. And I look for recurring charges that don't add clear value. So that might be old subscriptions, unused software, and things like excessive utility bills. That's a massive one. So there was a marketing agency in Manchester, and they were paying 12 grand a year for their a really high-end marketing analytics tool that only one member of the team used occasionally. So they switched to a different one, which was easier for everyone else to use, and they saved 80%. So that was really good. Do engage your employees. As I've said during the presentation, I just feel that I find out so much from my team. If you have regular review meetings and allow them the chance to come up with solutions, it's amazing what you can come. And sometimes frontline staff see wasteful practices that management misses, depending on the size of your company. Going back to the logistics company in Bristol, I found that they actually had a solution from their team when they found out that their routing software was outdated. And that's how they managed to save so much money on fuel. It all came from a member of their team. And we've also talked about using making sure that you use the right technology. So that's what I'd say with that one. Okay. I've got another question that's come in on the chat. So this says, when trimming costs, how do you avoid cutting something you would later hurt the business during the sale evaluation? Well, that's really important. Now, it depends on where you are in the life cycle of your business. If you are looking to sell your business soon, it's a little bit different. Yeah, from if you're looking to carry on your business. But I would always say, when people go through our scale system to improve their valuation of their business for sale, they often end up falling back in love with their business and don't want to sell it because it's making so much sales and profit. I would say cost cutting needs to be strategic and ensure that you preserve critical capabilities and long-term value. So focus on efficiency and not just on reduction. So instead of cutting resources that drive revenue or growth, look at eliminating inefficiencies like repeated manual processes with replace those with automation, and that could save you costs. So an example of that was an accounting company, one of the many in London, and it automated its invoice generation system and follow-up process. And so it was able to get invoices out quicker, get them paid more quickly because of the follow-up process, and they saved 10 grand annually and improved their cash flow. So definitely on invoicing, it's a really good thing to think about automation. You also need to think about preserving customer-facing investments. So if you're trimming costs, try to make sure that it doesn't impact on your customer experience. So you have to make sure you can maintain your quality control of your customer and your delivery times. So it's really important to think about that when you're looking at cost cutting. And also to align with buyer expectations. So if you are serious about selling your business in the next year or two, think about what the buyer would want. And when I'm a buyer, I'm looking for scalable operations. So avoid cutting costs in areas which could potentially deliver a lot of growth, such as marketing is something, research and development and staff training are all ones you need to think about, maybe refining, but not cutting the costs too much. So I work with a tech startup in Edinburgh, and they were slashing their marketing budget, and it they were able to do it without impacting on their growth because they were able to use a new tech system to be able to do that, and they relied much more heavily on social media. So it didn't impact on their valuation because effectively they were in a nice position that their sales were going up. I think we might have one more question. Have I ever seen a business cut costs so cleverly it actually boosted their appeal to buyers? Asking for inspiration. Oh, that's a brilliant question. I love that. Yes, absolutely. Strategic cost cutting can't own, doesn't just boost your profitability, but it also enhances your operational efficiency, making a business far more attractive to buyers. Now, buyers will want to know that they can put their own efficiencies in place, but they'd much rather get a growing, profitable business under their wings than one that they have to do a lot of work on, because a lot of the buyers will be buying more than one business. In fact, in the Harbour Club that I'm a member of, I think the average is about 6 businesses a year that people buy. So what do you do to make yourself, to cut costs but make yourself more attractive? The first one is definitely switching to more scalable models. So you can definitely in your business look at saving costs whilst at the same time demonstrating scalability. So you might shift from a fixed cost model to a variable cost model, and that will allow you to be much more flexible to market fluctuations. I work with a steel company, and they had real problems that they were going to from massive profitability to a loss because they were charging the same price for their finished steel products, and the market for steel just changes every week. So they made those changes and they were able to keep afloat, which was really good. I think the other thing about cutting costs and being attractive is investing in automation. So if there's some sort of scalable process that you put in place or scalable tech solutions, buyers absolutely love that. So again, I love working on examples, and there was a manufacturing company in Coventry, and they actually brought in some robotics. So there was a bit of investment, but they knew that they had repetitive assembly tasks and their quality control was an issue. So they put in a small amount of robotics, and it actually increased their profitability by 50,000 a year. But more particularly, it was a much better quality control. So it ended up they sold their business, and it was a key selling point at the time. Um, there's a couple of other things I would look at doing in terms of cutting costs. One of them is eco-friendly savings. So if you can do some sustainability cost savings, that's really good. For example, the bakery that I was talking about earlier, they actually put in eco-friendly ovens. So it cut their electricity bill by amazing £7,000 a year, but it also made them really attractive because they had new up-to-date equipment and they could actually put a eco badge to it. Um, and then the other thing that I really would say would attract business buyers, but also help you with saving costs at the moment, is reallocating your resources to high margin activities. So really look at what your most profitable activities or your products or services are, and focus on those and how you can grow those. The digital agency in Glasgow I worked with had a web hosting service that they offered. and they actually ended up they stopped offering that because it's quite ubiquitous and people can get it for a lot cheaper web hosting through big companies. So instead, they redirected those resources to high margin, bespoke development services. So they were able to charge a much higher margin. It boosted their profits, and it also highlighted their strategic focus. So it really enabled them to go from a niche of a few buyers, and it really extended them to a lot more buyers. So they ended up in a bit of a buyer's war, which always means that the price that you get for your business goes up, which is great. And I think the final point on that question in terms of cutting costs and being more attractive to somebody as a buyer is working on your working capital that you have within your business. If you can optimize your payment terms with suppliers and customers, you can free up cash flow and really demonstrate really good financial health to buyers. Very often I'll go into businesses and they will have terms where they have to pay within 15 or 30 days for the products or services that they pay for, and yet they will be receiving payments for other things up to 90 days later. The easiest thing some of my colleagues do is just chuck away the just stop them being able to do direct debits and put a checkbook system in place, because it means that you're not paying your suppliers as quickly. You're still paying them consistently and within their time frame, but you're not paying them within 11 days. You also need to put in systems. If you can save a massive amount of money if you can get your cash in quicker. So if your terms are 60 days, if you can reduce them to 30 days and even look at giving a 5% discount if people pay within 5 days, it can make a massive impact, not only on your cash flow, but ultimately your profitability and your security as a business. So you're much, much more attractive to people who are looking to potentially buy your business. There was a wholesale distributor in Manchester, and they did exactly that. They negotiated payment terms with their suppliers from 30 to 60 days. And then they did early payment discounts for customers, and their cash flow actually improved by £100,000 annually. So they were in a fantastic position when they went to sell their business. So those are answering the questions. Is there any other questions today? Okay.
Yeah, I did send through a question. It's not really connected today, but I was
Oh,
asking what will be, the strongest indicators for a business to be making an EBITDA of, say, times five.
sorry, say that again. You wanted the strongest indicators for EBITDA?
Yeah, of times five. What do you think would be the indicators for a business to acquire that position?
Oh, okay. Well, it depends on what sector your business is in to start off with, yeah, and also the turnover of your business. So if you're looking at a multiple of 5, that could be a product or service based in company that was turning over between 1 million and 2 million and was making a profit of about 300, 400,000. That would probably get you a 5 times multiple, but it depends on your industry. But you're saying, what would you do to be able to make sure that you can achieve that? Sorry, I'm just understanding your question, Trisha, sorry. Hi.
Sorry, I was talking. I didn't know I was muted. Yeah. Okay, so I was just asking, what would be the indicators, and probably could the business do to get to that level?
Okay. The best thing is to if you want a 5 times multiple, what's your industry?
So it is an advertising industry, like an
Okay.
automobile advertising, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're working in advertising, the more tech-based you can be, the better. So, for example, I've worked for a number of care businesses, and a traditional care business that's not based on tech will be valued depending on their turnover. So to get a 5 times valuation for a traditional care business, 5 times EBITDA, that is, you would probably have to have a turnover of about 3 million and a profit of about 600,000 as a minimum. So that would be kind of your target. The benefit of the sector that you work in is demonstrated in when I worked for a care business that was a tech care business. So we marketed ourselves as a tech company as opposed to a service provider, because the USP was definitely in tech. That boosted us then from well, it would have been about an 8 times valuation because of the turnover of the business. So rather than 8 times EBITDA, we had started to get offered what tech companies get offered, which is 10 times turnover. So, Tricia, what I would say is if you have an opportunity to really work with becoming a much more tech-based one, then it can change the way that your valuation goes around. If you are a more traditional company, then you probably will have to stick to an EBITDA one. So the key thing is to get your sales and your profit up to a level. And for a 5 times EBITDA valuation, again, it's about the same as with a care business. So I'd be looking at a 3 million turnover, 600,000 profit to get that type of multiple. But you can also do it. You're more likely to get a much better price if you can sell to a strategic buyer. So that's somebody who's in your sector who wants to do the type of thing that you're really good at and successful with in your business, and it's going to cost them too much to set it up and learn it and grow it. And if you can find a strategic buyer, you will tend to find that your multiple will be higher because they have much more use for your business than a financial buyer. So if you can, I've had a friend of mine recently, and he had a company which was specializing in tech support for Apple. And he actually merged with a company that was doing tech support for everything that wasn't Apple. So they actually went from a valuation. One of the companies was valued about 3 million, and one was valued about 1 million. But their combined valuation went up to 6.5 million because they were able to offer a much broader range. So if you want to improve your valuation, look for a strategic buyer, somebody, and it's really good to look at your competitors and who might be able to do that. The other thing that's really good in your sector is recurring revenue. And the higher the proportion of recurring revenue you've got there, that will really boost the multiple of your EBITDA. That makes a huge difference. And your percentage profitability, if you can do some of the principles today and actually improve your profitability, that'd be really good. So I would see how many people you can get on a recurring revenue, like a retainer. If you've got more, make sure that you're not dependent on just 2 or 3 customers. If you can broaden your customer base, that's good. And one of the things one of the other things that really improves your profitability is by increasing your sales simply by looking at all the products and services that you offer and all your customers and tick where they overlap and look at all the gaps, because generally I find that I can get 20 to 30% more revenue. It's at a higher profit margin normally because it's the same customer. So that will boost the sales, it will boost the profit, and ultimately 5 times a million is a lot more than 5 times 200,000. So it's working on those things towards it. Does that help?
Excellent. Thank you. It does help. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
So,
wonderful. Any other questions?
not on my side for now. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great question. And yeah, if you ever want to see where you are at the moment, I've got a special valuation tool that means that you can have a really good line in the sand and say, this is what my business would be valued on the market at the moment. And it also, I can provide you like a 50-page report to say, these are the areas that you should focus on if you want to sell your business and want to improve that valuation. So if you ever want to do that, G will send you out an email afterwards, and I can send you a link and you can use that tool, and that's free of charge.
Thank you, Kirsty. Thank you. That'll be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for dialing in anyway, and thank you to everyone else. I know a lot of people watch this afterwards, and thank you for Mike and Stuart and Phil, who have each sent in the great questions this week as well. See you all next week, and as I say, week 11 will be about intellectual property enhancement. There's some really easy ways that you can get your secret sauce and not have to pay huge fees to get a patent, but to protect that secret source. So we'll be looking at that next week, and I've got an amazing contact who will be able to give you a free audit on that. So I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thank you. See you
Thanks a
then.
lot. Bye.
Bye.